Hi, everybody. Dan Illman, Ashley Mailloux taking a look at the DRF race of the day for Sunday, September the 15th. It's closing day at Monmouth Park. Two New Jersey bred stakes races. Our race of the day is the 9th. This is a handicap 5/8 of a mile on the turf. It's called the Joey P. And we've got 10 in this race. The Joey P wasn't contested in 2023. So the 6 Smithwick Spice is defending his title.
Yeah, and Smithwick Spice, he looks like a major contender on paper. I know he disappointed last time out, but different ball game. He wasn't against New Jersey breds. He was against competition at Saratoga in the Harvey pack. And hey, he only missed by 3 3/4 of a length when it was all said and done. He was chasing the pace throughout. And I just think he looks extremely tough getting back to Monmouth. When you look at his career success, he's done very well.
And we'll throw up the Timeform US pace projector. Smithwick Spice is likely going to be among the leaders. He does not need the lead to win, but he figures right in the thick of things when they turn for home. The 7 Speaking is a very fast horse. We'll see if Speaking can transfer his good dirt form to turf.
Yeah, Speaking, that's the big question, right? The surface change for him. His one try on turf, not so great, but a little bit of a different circuit as well. So going to be very intriguing. You can see some horses were claimed in their, I don't know, last couple of starts to kind of get into a race like this. Great money here for the New Jersey breds. And you have also with that, other horses switching surfaces, horses cutting back in distance. I think it does make the pace scenario a little murky to uncover and digest.
And one of the keys to this race is the 9, There Are No Words, who has the fastest Timeform US late pace rating, comparable from a class standpoint to Smithwick Spice, but has been spending the majority of his career around 2 turns. Can he go 5? That's the big question mark. The 1 is Like What I See, a horse that was claimed out of his most recent start, should show speed in this race, but is taking a pretty big step up in class from a 12-5 claimer.
Yeah, huge step up in class here for the 1 Like What I See. And when you look at his races here, they've tried him at a little bit of everything at Monmouth Park. He's gone the sprint distances. He's gone a mile. They've just done a little bit of everything. And I did like his race 2 back. But I think the big thing is as a 9-year-old, he's been lightly handled. We've only seen him 3 times. But the last couple of years, it's been the same story. I mean, he's typically getting a piece, but he's a little inconsistent.
The number 2 is Grouch, and Grouch is going dirt to turf for Kent Sweezy. A horse who 3 starts back was in a pretty tough allowance race, an open field at Delaware going 2 turns. When you go back to his most recent true turf sprint, a 1-turn sprint towards the end of the 2023 campaign, this horse looked good from off of the pace. So maybe he's still unexposed sprinting on the lawn.
Maybe. I think if you're looking at a horse that I think will be a little bit of a decent price, he'll be one of them. And you talked about it. I mean, he's consistent. He really hasn't had so many sprints under his belt. And even the 7.5 furlong race, I know Smithwick Spikes, ends up getting the job done in here. And this horse is just 4th. But I thought it was an okay effort. His last 2, sure, they've been on the dirt. So maybe you would draw a line through him. But the other thing to note is he wasn't against his New Jersey breds in those races. Those are some tough horses. And the winner of his last Diamond Heist has turned out to be an okay racehorse and has done very well up there and kind of anywhere he's gone. So he's a very intriguing horse here.
Golden Brown is just a cool horse. The veteran 9-year-old won this race in 2021. It's his most recent victory. He won the Grade 3 Kent at Delaware as a 3-year-old, and he actually ran against Good Magic in the Haskell that year, so he's been around for a while. Maybe he's getting a little bit long in the tooth, but you never want to count him out because of his back class.
You talk about it. Just scroll through his PPs. They're pretty long, right? He's a 43-time, horse to the races so far in his career. This will be 44 for him. And he's just faced so many horses that you almost forget about in some regards, right? Tom Zita, Cold Front. I mean, he's seen it all, Dan. And I agree. Maybe he's not the same horse that he once was. And he did have a really big break between April of 2023 and this summer at Monmouth Park. But they've had him in those stakes races. He's finally getting against New Jersey breds for the first time since when? August of 2022, and he was competitive against his fellow straight bred runners. It's tough to say. Now he's going to cut back in distance. They tried him sprinting. I felt like in both of his sprint races, he's sort of outrun early.
Lemon Creek Louie is going to try turf again. He's only raced once on the surface in his career. It was way back in 2021, and it was a 2-turn race. From a class standpoint, he might be a little bit wanting. He was claimed for a nickel 2 starts back on dirt. I think they're going for the big person here and hoping he handles sprinting on the grass. He's never done it before.
Yeah, it's a question. He's tried the turf once in his career and is back in 2021, and it didn't really pan out for him. But it was going around 2 turns at the mile distance, and he's a horse that these connections just took for $5,000. And I think probably the thought process was he was a New Jersey bred, right? So they wanted to get him in the barn. Dan Ward splits his time between Oaklawn now and Monmouth Park, and they're going to give him a shot here. And again, a lot of purse money on the line. It's him trying something new. He's 6 years old. Where a couple others in here, right? They're more of the salty veterans that are 8 or 9 years old. It's just tough because even his dirt numbers, I don't feel like are the most competitive.
We know what we're getting from horses like Golden Brown and Smithwick Spice and some of the more experienced runners in this race. The 5 Gold Trust is still all upside, and he's won 2 of his 3 starts on the turf. The question for him is distance. Both of those wins came around 2 turns. I certainly understand why they're going to try it, because he's shown a versatile running style, and maybe he doesn't have to be too far out of it early.
I think that's the key thing that you mentioned, Dan, as you look at Gold Trust. It's that he doesn't need the lead. He can close from off of it. I thought he was game 3 starts back when he graduated. He, was sitting 3-4 lengths off the pace and gets the job done. And much the best here after having those 2 months off. And really respect these connections. I think they do a great job. And this is a homebred for Mike Denny. And we'll see what they can do here. He's only making that second start since June, but he's going to really have to wheel back. And I'm very curious to see where he'll be early in this race.
The horse they're all going to have to beat is the 6 Smithwick Spice. Let's watch his win in the Select, an open stakes race, 2 starts back, and he just got right up close to the pace, opened things up on the turn, and is very game to win. They ran him right back in the Harvey Pack Stakes at Saratoga. I talked to trainer Doug Nunn earlier today, and he said he wasn't sure if the Joey P was going to go this year, so that was one of the reasons why he ran at Saratoga. But he also says this horse thrives on training, and in the Harvey Pack, this horse was down inside, and Nunn said it's really not where he wants to be, so he's very happy with this post position.
I think looking at the Select, obviously it wasn't a huge field, but it's who finished behind him. Nothing better, who was just second in the DeHaas by a nice South African horse trained by Graham Motion at Colonial. Just to be, kind of against that caliber, even was a compact field, I think for some, in some aspects, I should say, this is probably some class relief from him compared to what he's seen in his last 2.
Speaking, the number 7, I think, is a very dangerous pace presence. He's only raced once on the turf, and I'm willing to give him a mulligan because it was a 2-turn 7.5 furlong race, and this just isn't a 2-turn horse. He's a speedball. I think this distance is going to be fine for him, and if he handles the surface and gets away with a relatively easy lead, he could be tough to catch.
And he's a horse that I fell in love with during this 3-year-old season. He was very fun to watch, Dan, kind of in all of his races and face some tough horses. And then you can see last year as a 4-year-old, he had his starts. He was a 2-time winner from 3 starts, but there were some gaps in between them. And I think maybe, he had a couple of issues or maybe some setbacks there. But since then, we've only seen him again 3 times. And now it's going to be his second start off the freshening. I think there's upside there. But the big question mark is the surface. And I think with the surface, Switch, what sort of price would you want on Speaking? I wouldn't want that short of a price on him. I know he's been a very consistent horse throughout his career, but the surface Switch, he's only had that 1 turf race under his belt. It was around 2 turns at Gulfstream. I can't take a short horse on a horse like Speaking, where there are just classier horses in terms of turf races and what they've done on the grass.
It's never easy in cutting back precipitously in distance on turf, but Ohana Empire ran pretty well going route to sprint 2 starts back when beaten by Like What I See. This guy just doesn't have a lot of early speed, however, so he's really going to need a lot of pace up front, and he's going to need a clean trip, and he probably has to actually take a little bit of a step forward.
I think he will need to. When you look at him, he's been kind of a claiming horse, an allowance optional claiming sort of type, and he's been third a lot this year. His last 4 races, they've all had the same result. And you talked about it, Dan. He was able to cut back and somewhat be a factor in the end, but they did go very quick. And they're still going to go quick in this race. But I also just wonder, we talk about this all the time, 5.5 versus 5, there's a difference. And I think it hurts a horse with his sort of running style.
There Are No Words is classy enough to win this race, but the question is, can he sprint? Is this distance just way too sharp for him? Let's watch his most recent race. This is the Red Bank, an open stake at Monmouth. It was won by another New Jersey bred, but there were open horses in this race, and There Are No Words was battling it out for the lead, makes the lead in the stretch, and is just going to get nipped on the wire. It's been close, but no cigar for him all year. I talked to Chuck Spina earlier today, and he said, listen, this distance is probably a little bit too too short for him. It's a big pot. It's Jay Breads. They're going to take a shot. And they feel that since he was on the lead 2 starts back in a fast-paced edition of the Oceanport, that they don't have to be too far out of him.
Chuck's like the mayor of Monmouth Park. Great person to talk to. And he does very well with his horses. And I think it's really kind of a sign here that he mentions that this horse is probably going too short, right? But you also wonder with his resume, can he still get a piece in here? I have a feeling that he certainly can, regardless of that sharp cutback in distance, a very consistent horse. If I wanted to knock him at all, it would just be, look at him this year. There are a lot of times where you think he's going to win and he sort of hangs there. So maybe that is the thought process. Let's just try him doing something different. I would prefer to see him at 7 or 7.5, but you don't really have those options at Monmouth, right? With the way their turf course is configured. So it's a mile and a 16th, or you're cutting way back. And for him, he's going to try the 5/8, but has some really competitive numbers on paper.
Turf debut for the 10 Bingos boy, who was a winner 2 starts back in an off-turf race. But when you look at his 2 starts against stakes competition, it just hasn't looked very good. So I think there's a big ask for him turning back in distance, switching surfaces for a first time, and facing some salty older horses.
He's tough for me to see, just based on what we've seen so far. He's a younger horse, right? He raced very well 2 starts back, but it was a mile on the dirt. And just what we've seen in those limited sprint races, I'm going to throw out the debut. 4.5. I mean, you basically have to go to the lead for the most part in those races, or be very forward and get the job done. And just because he won at 4.5, to me, doesn't mean he can take 5/8 on the turf. So he would be a tough sell for me against this group.
Top pick time for the Joey P Stakes. It's our Sunday DRF race of the day. Smithwick Spice is Way the horse to beat. We have the same exact, a different order. I'm hoping There Are No Words isn't too far behind. Maybe they'll put on a little bit of a show in the stretch. I'm a little bit worried about Speaking.
Yeah, it's a tough race outside of those top 2. I felt like there are strong cases to be made for both the 6 and the 9. I even said it, Ohana Empire. I think 5 furlongs might work against this horse. But what I'm hoping for is just that consistency in those last several, that if the pace is hot, you have to look for a price underneath. I think the 6 and 9 are both going to be really short prices. And for me, I just thought, looking at that effort 2 back, if I, was looking for a price, maybe there was somewhat of a case to be made for him. But like we see here, I mean, we're all in on the 6 and 9.
6987 for Ashley, 9632 for me. It's the Joey P, the Sunday race of the day. Again, one of 2 stakes on closing day at Monmouth. Best of luck.